Welcome to Far East Wargaming, and today we're excited to bring you our first Horus Heresy Battlefleet Gothic for 2024.
Yes, so those of you that have been on the channel before, you know that we've played one other Heresy game of Gothic, Battlefleet Gothic, or Heresy Gothic, however you want to call it, because there's different rule sets going out there. But yes, this is our first one in 2024, and it's also part of our continuing practice run leading up to the linked campaign between BFG and 30K and Legions Imperialis.
Yes, so we're very excited for that, but we're excited to bring you this game today. Today we're going to be playing the Dark Angels, and I'll be playing those versus the Alpha Legion.
Yes, it'll be shenanigans. We are playing the Fleet Engagement mission for Battlefleet Gothic. We're also using the majority of the rules from Heresy Gothic as well.
Correct,
the optional rule set. The only thing that we're not using is the Legion special rules for the Alpha Legion and the Dark Angels. We're playing at 1,700 points, which again seems like a weird point value, but it's also based on the ships and things that we have. Looks to be a pretty interesting game. I think you've probably got more heavy hitters up close, and I've got more shots at a distance.
Yes, I've gone for a heavy Space Marine Legion force, so basically cruisers. I think you've gone more for the Imperial cruisers or the Chaos cruisers kind of things. Yeah,
I've got kind of a mix. So I've got a little bit of your Chaos style cruisers, but then I've also got some Imperial or Legion style cruisers. So, but I do have a lot of stuff that can fire 60 centimeters.
Yeah. So we've rolled for the random terrain as well, so you'll see that shortly. But we'll dig into the game, but we'll start first with the Legion overviews, and then bring you the battlefield and the match. I hope you enjoy it, and we'll see you in the post-game. For the Alpha Legion, at the head of the fleet is a Vengeance Grand Cruiser. This ship has Master of the Fleet, giving it Leadership 10, and has also upgraded to have Astartes and Terminator crew. For the heavy cruisers, we start with a Styx heavy cruiser. This has Astartes and Terminator upgrades and a leadership value of 8. Next we have a Hades heavy cruiser. This one also has Astartes upgrades and a leadership value of 8. For cruisers, we start with a Devastation cruiser. This has also been upgraded with both Astartes and Terminator crew, and has a leadership of 8. The first of a trio of Space Marine strike cruisers. This one has upgraded its prow launch bay to prow bombardment cannon, and has also additional shield. The leadership value of this ship is 10. Next we have two identical strike cruisers. Both have been upgraded to have prow torpedo tubes as well as an additional shield. Both of these have leadership 8. Finally, we have a 2-strong squadron of Firestorm frigates. Both of these have been upgraded to have Astartes crew, and this squadron has a leadership of 10. That rounds up the Battlefleet Heresy force for the Alpha Legion. For the Dark Angels, at the head of the fleet is a Space Marine battle barge. This has been upgraded with Master of the Fleet, an additional shield, as well as upgrading the side armaments to bombardment cannons. It also has a prow facing lance. Its leadership value is 10. For cruisers, we start with a pair of identical Space Marine strike cruisers. Both have upgraded with additional shields and have replaced their prow launch bays with prow bombardment cannons. Both of these have a leadership value of 10. Next, for the cruisers, we have another Space Marine strike cruiser. This one here retains its prow launch bay, but has upgraded to additional shields. The leadership value for this is 9. Finally, the last of the cruisers is another Space Marine strike cruiser. This one has upgraded its prow launch bay to prow torpedo tubes and has also added additional shields. The leadership value for this ship is 10. For frigates, we start with a 3-strong Cobra destroyer squadron. These have all been upgraded to have Astartes crew, and the squadron has a leadership value of 9. Next up, we have a 3-strong squadron of sword frigates. These have also been upgraded with Astartes crew, and the squadron has a leadership value of 8. Finally, rounding off the force, we have a 3-strong squadron of Firestorm frigates. These have also been upgraded with Astartes crew, and the squadron has a leadership value of 10. This rounds up the Battlefleet Heresy force for the Dark Angels. The terrain for today's game in space for our Heresy battle fleet. We randomly rolled the terrain, and as you can see, we have a lot of asteroids. For the deployment zones, Jason has rolled to deploy only in the limited area as defined by those dice. I will be rolling to, well, I'll be deploying 60 centimeters away from that. Should be exciting. A lot of line of sight blocking terrain, some dust clouds. Let's see what space does.
So for the deployment of the sneaky Alpha Legion fleet, we've elected to reinforce one of our flanks. So starting on this right side, we've put a couple of our heavy cruisers to take advantage mostly of the fact that I have a lot of 60-inch lances. We've also put the Firestorm frigates over here as well with their lance support. Of course, our flagship, the Vengeance Grand Cruiser, is also on this particular flank with the last of the heavy cruisers as well. The idea is as much firepower in a small an area. Maybe I can get off some good shots in the very first turn and take down a ship or two, especially the smaller ships. All 3 of my strike cruisers have elected to be over here on this left-hand side. What I'm trying to also do is force Rich into a decision on what he wants to do with his middle, because he's behind that asteroid field. Is he going to go to the left? Is he going to go to the right? I don't know, but we're going to make him choose one way or the other in just a moment.
For the Dark Angels, we've decided to spread ourselves out, maybe a bit too thin there, but our first group contains a strike cruiser with full bombard on our furthest flank, with a strike cruiser and torpedo bays next to him. Adjacent to that is a 3-strong sword frigate squadron. In the middle, taking up our center and the bulk of our force, we have 3 Firestorm frigates. We have the launch bay strike cruiser, our battle barge, right front and center, and then another bombard frigate, bombard cruiser, full bombards there. And finally, just to harass the flank, 3 torpedo Cobra frigates. We'll see who gets first turn shortly.
So we're about to have the roll-off, but of course before any roll-off, we always have the obligatory fist bump. Good luck, sir.
Good luck to you. Let's see what goes.
All right, let's see who gets the first turn.
Oh.
Looks like it's the crafty Alpha Legion. We'll be back in just a minute with turn 1. Turn 1 movement summary for the Alpha Legion. We've played a little bit cautious, and we also elected not to actually issue any special orders this turn. And the reason why is I unfortunately rolled a lot of leadership 8s even with the Astartes crew. I know that I'm going to be in range with some of these cruisers over here, so I just elected not to lock on. I don't want to give Rich a bonus in his turn. And for things like the frigates, their lance is only 30-inch. Bombardment is only, 30 cm. Most of the bombardment weaponry and other weaponry on the strike cruisers are also only 30 cm, so really it didn't make any sense to do any special orders for this phase. I didn't move up my full distance because there's really no need. It wasn't going to get any benefits for me. I have plenty of 60 cm weaponry that we're going to launch in just a moment. So the shooting phase for the Alpha Legion, a bit of a mixed bag, not as good as I would have liked. So basically all of the cruisers, the heavy cruisers here, all of them are loaded with as many of their lances and prow weaponry as possible at the opposing firestorms over on Rich's side. We did manage to do enough damage to actually kill one of the frigates and leave a couple blast markers there. Rich had some good saves on his brace, which he elected to do smartly due to all the lance fire that was coming over there. Other than those 60-inch lance shots, I did not have anything else from my turn, but we probably will have some ordnance in a moment. For the ordnance phase for the Alpha Legion, we actually elected not to shoot anything. I'm going to wait for my prey to get in a little bit closer before unloading with some torpedoes or whatnot. And to be honest, any of the angles that I had weren't going to do much to change Rich's plan. Of course, because this is the very first turn in the in phase, I don't have any blast markers or anything else to resolve, so we'll hand it over to the Dark Angels for their turn 1.
Dark Angels turn 1, and we have been quite sneaky as opposed to being Alpha Legion here. We've taken some big risks, some very big risks. Our Cobras went into the asteroid field to hide because they weren't in range of their torpedoes, and escorts get to re-roll their leadership, so they were lucky to get in there and survive. Up the center, we've kind of done the same, and we've flirted very close with our leadership there. We actually have leadership 10 on a lot of this, so we thought the risk was worthwhile. Now they can't be shot, but we do have the one lone strike cruiser who is vulnerable to getting some fire in the next turn. I think we're going to see him eat a few shots. On the other flank, we had our swords move forward here and then turn to be a beam of anything coming. They're quite maneuverable, so we're going to try and get them around the side. Our other strike cruiser is closing in fast. Risking it for the biscuit here. The Dark Angels are just going to plow straight in, I think, at some point. And then taking up the flank with an all-ahead full is our full bombard strike cruiser. His goal is to potentially come around the flanks or behind this fleet when they go driving by. There is no shooting, and in the ordnance phase, we'll just be removing 2 of those blast markers in the back.
Turn 2 for the Alpha Legion, kicking off the orders before we moved. I started with this battle barge here on my left flank. I did not want to get too close to those corvettes or be guaranteed torpedo hits. So we went ahead and just did burn retros, allowing me to stay in place and get a free turn. I went on to the next ship, which was my Grand Cruiser. Leadership 10. I get a bonus leadership because he's on orders. I can only fail on a 12, and I roll a 12. So that put a big crank into my plans. So the end of the orders stopped there. So summarizing the movement, I've played very aggressive over here on my right flank. I want to get in as many shots as possible in this turn, either against this other squadron of frigates over here, or the battle barge, or the lone battle barge that didn't make it into the asteroid fields. Not as many ships are going to be able on the same target as I would have liked by getting those special orders off, but hey, or the rerolls would have been great. Let's see what happens. We'll come back and see if I can whittle this down in just a moment. Shooting phase for the Alpha Legion, and it was much better this turn, actually. So on my left-hand flank, all of the strike cruisers, none of them actually shot at anything because they either didn't have any targets or they didn't have range. Coming over here into the middle, we opened up with my little baby frigates here against Rich's frigates, managing to put a hit marker and take out 1. We then opened up with the Styx heavy cruiser, which also added to the fun, killing 1 more of the frigates, thanks to some good rolls. And then finishing them off was the Vengeance Grand Cruiser with its starboard lance battery, managing to score 2 more hits and wiping out that entire squadron. Rich had actually tried to brace and unfortunately failed his brace roll, which opened up all of this carnage over here. So fantastic set of results for that. I'm really glad to wipe out that squadron. Both of my remaining heavy cruisers here, the Hades and the Devastation, they both opened up on the lone strike cruiser that was not in the asteroid field from the Dark Angels. Rich was successful in bracing, but it didn't matter because all of the weapons that I had available to shoot at that particular target, none of it did any damage whatsoever. Very happy with that. Killing the 1 full squadron of frigates is going to be really, really helpful for me, but the problem is that in Rich's turn, that's going to be a lot of stuff that's going to be in range for him to shoot. As far as ordnance goes, I need to have a thought about it because I think I might be able to put down some torpedoes that might cause Rich problems in his turn. So for ordnance, we did have a couple items that I wanted to go ahead and launch. So the strike cruiser over here that has the available torpedo in the prow went ahead and shot off his. Now what that's going to do, it's going to kind of give Rich something to think about unless he wants to run into those torpedoes. The Styx heavy cruiser over on this side also elected to launch assault boats, again for the same thing. This also kind of gums us up over here. I mean, granted, these aren't high dangerous attacks, but anything that's free and potentially going to cause some damage and mess with Rich's movement, I'm going to go ahead and take advantage of that. So as I don't have any blast markers, I don't have any damage control, we don't have any boarding actions or anything like this, that's going to be the end of the Alpha Legion turn, and we're going to hand it over to the Dark Angels now.
Turn 2 for the Dark Angels, and to start with the orders, we started with some lock-ons from both the battleship and the full bombard strike cruiser in the back. Sadly, with the -5 movement, that cruiser at the back remained in the asteroid field, but the battle barge managed to get out, moving directly forward to his full 15. The cruiser that braced in the previous turn didn't get orders, but he moved through the asteroid field again successfully and turned his 90 degrees to face. Our strike cruiser on the side with the torpedo bays decided to go lock on as well and to see what kind of damage he can do. And then our final strike cruiser on the far flank, who is sadly out of position, decided to just move forward and turn 90 degrees, but make sure he's not within 10 of the asteroid field because he doesn't want to risk having to go into it in the next movement phase. And finally, the little boys on my right-hand flank here, they came out of the asteroid field successfully and looking to do a torpedo run on one of these strike cruisers and see if we can do some damage there. Shooting phase next. Shooting phase for the Dark Angels, and we didn't have as much firepower as we thought, but we tried to prioritize one ship, and that really didn't go very well. He did elect to brace, and we fired everything we had into it. So the bombards fired, the frigates fired, yep. Both the battleship and the strike cruiser fired at this, and all we managed to do is strip the 2 shields off him because he made a boatload of saves.
I did. Even with your rerolls for lock-on, you didn't hit probably as well as you probably could have, and then I was passing 4-up saves like crazy. I think I only failed 2 out of all the rolls.
Yeah. And then on the far side, we just took some speculative shots. They took a leadership check to prioritize a further away target, and they dropped one of the shields of that strike cruiser. So it's going to limit a bit of his movement, just more harassing than anything else. But we'll be for the ordnance phase next. Oh, and we also managed to shoot down one of the assault boats by the battle barge here. So ordnance phase for the Dark Angels next, and I think those assault boats are going to be coming into one of my ships soon. Ordnance phase, and it was a pretty exciting one. We started off with this strike cruiser launching some torpedoes, which managed to take out one of the frigates, passing through it with 2 remaining, but unsuccessful in hitting the cruiser in the back. So it's sailing off into the distance in the next turn there. The strike cruiser here sent out its Thunderhawk assault boats, and it was not in range of anything, but it's placed them in front of this Grand Cruiser. It's going to walk into them in its movement phase in the next turn. Also, the torpedoes from our Cobras successfully hit 1 wound on this lone strike cruiser and then kept going into the distance. The torpedoes from the Alpha Legion sailed into the asteroid field and blew up behind the battle barge, but the 2 strike craft came after my Firestorm frigates, but failed to get shot down and failed to do any damage. So we'll see what they do in the next ordnance phase, but that's turn 2 for the Dark Angels. Not as good as I wanted to, but we'll see where it goes.
Turn 3 for the Alpha Legion, and we are being very aggressive. So starting with the commands, I elected to lock on with absolutely everything And even though the majority of my force is leadership 8, as you can see here, I didn't have a single one that failed. Every single ship managed to lock on this turn, with the exception of this cruiser right here, which is the Devastation, and the reason why is because he was already on the brace for impact orders. I've moved aggressively to basically maximize the amount of shooting that can be delivered into the various targets. So this grouping of the 2 heavy cruisers and the remaining frigate are going to be targeting over here against that particular strike cruiser. My heavy cruiser and my my Grand Cruiser and my heavy cruiser here, same thing. We've moved forward. We went ahead and put the Grand Cruiser through the Thunderhawks. We had no choice. We did take 1 hit, but thankfully it wasn't critical. These 2 strike cruisers, the one with the dual bombardment as well as the other one with torpedoes and bombardment, it's going to be nasty. They're going to unload straight into all those juicy targets right in front. And then finally, this strike cruiser was locked on, so he couldn't pivot, but he still is able to actually move forward and be in a nice little range of those escorts right there. Depending on how we roll, this could be a pretty deadly turn, but we'll see in just a moment. Shooting phase for the Alpha Legion, and we did exactly what we needed to do. So we opened up with everything that could over here on this side against this strike cruiser. We got all the shields down. We took them all the way down to 1 hit left. And then it was up to Big Daddy over here splitting his fire. He went ahead and the Grand Cruiser fired, and he managed to strip off that last hit on that strike cruiser, successfully wrecking it. Thankfully, we only rolled a double 1 on the Catastrophic, and we didn't have it explode in our face. So that was a very, very good start. Moving over here to this particular heavy cruiser, this one would be actually the Devastation. So the Devastation opened up on the frigates right there, managing to kill 1 of them, which was pretty good. The Grand Cruiser, firing its left side weaponry as well, opened up on this particular strike cruiser. We did do 1 shield from that fire. We opened up with both of the strike cruisers here, the various bombardment cannons, etc. We managed to do absolutely, unfortunately, nothing else to that particular strike cruiser. Would have liked to have stripped off some hits, but hey, I can't get too greedy. And then finally, the last strike cruiser on my left flank fired into these Cobras right here. We managed to actually kill 1 of them because, unfortunately, Rich failed his brace, which was really, really helpful. We snuck 2 hits in and we killed 1 of them. Excellent result for the Alpha Legion in killing 1 strike cruiser and 2 more of the frigates. We still have ordnance to resolve, which may actually possibly chip off some more hits or maybe even kill another one of the frigates. We'll see what happens in just a minute. So getting into the ordnance phase for the Alpha Legion, you'll have to bear with us. We apologize. In the last turn, we actually messed up the way the assault boats worked. We were treating them as normal ordnance instead of a hit-and-run attack. Therefore, we weren't pulling them off of the table after the attack run was made. We apologize for that. We corrected it here in the Alpha Legion turn 3. To be quite honest, it didn't really do anything. It didn't have much of an effect on the game, but the eagle-eyed amongst you might actually notice that, so we want to make sure that we get it correct. So in my ordnance phase for the Alpha Legion, the only thing was I still had this remaining cruiser here, the Styx, that had full bays. I launched the right side bays with my assault boats into this particular strike cruiser. We managed to actually get 2 of them through. We only lost 1 for the turret, and we did a dorsal weapon damage critical, and we also did an engine critical, which is massive. So 1 whole point off of this particular strike cruiser, and he now is missing some weapons and having some trouble with his engine, so that's remarkable. And then those will, of course, come off after the hit and run. For the left side bays, we went ahead and launched those assault boats this direction because what we want to do is, again, put ourselves in a position to hit either of Rich's ships in the following turn. Only last thing to do is actually to roll for the various blast markers that weren't new this particular turn. We'll handle that at the end of the phase. I'm very happy with the way that went for the Alpha Legion. Killing 2 more frigates and 1 strike cruiser was pretty massive. So we'll see what happens in the Dark Angels turn 3.
Turn 3 for the Dark Angels, and that was a painful beginning to turn 3. Losing that strike cruiser and basically crippling our other strike cruiser in terms of its firepower and maneuverability. We started with some orders and we went for lock-ons. So we locked on with our full bombard strike cruiser there. We also locked on with the strike cruiser full bombard that was hiding in the asteroid field. We locked on with our battle barge. Our strike cruiser who'd braced couldn't do anything, and neither could our Firestorm frigates. But we did reload our Cobras to come and harass the back of this strike cruiser here and do some more damage that we did last turn. Movement-wise, we moved forward to just get everything into range as best we could. There are a bit of overlapping bases in the middle here. The bracing strike cruiser is actually a centimeter overlapped with the battle barge. We just can't fit that, and we're not going to do some funny mechanics. But we know where he is, and everything else just moved forward to get into range. It's going to get, hopefully, a deadly shooting phase. Shooting phase for the Dark Angels, and it was a bit more successful there. We started off with the bombards on the side here. The strike cruiser managed to take out the last frigate. Luckily, because he only had his shields down already, and we only managed to sneak in one wound there. And even though he did elect to brace, it didn't make a difference. So that's a squadron of frigates down. But it really gets exciting when it comes into the middle here. Due to the nature of all of the weapons and the angles, we couldn't really effectively go after the main Grand Cruiser there. So we went after the smaller cruisers, and it was very successful. Everything fired here, and we managed to strip all but one hull point from both this strike cruiser, which is the Hades, or the Devastation?
That one's the Devastation.
Devastation, and the Bombard cruiser as well, strike cruiser there. And they also have fire each.
Yes, so I pressed my luck with the Bombard strike cruiser, electing not to actually brace because I figured he needed 6s, and he rolled like 5 out of 7. And unfortunately, yes, both of those two ships are on their last point of hit, and they are both on fire, so there's a good chance that they're going to go bye-bye here in just a minute.
Yeah. So then for the other shooting, we attempted to take some pot shots with the Cobras after they reloaded to try and maybe take off the last hull point from this one, but no success there. We've got some ordnance in the air, and there's some ordnance from the Cobras that we want to do, and also the battle barge, who has both Thunderhawks and torpedoes. We'll see which one we want to launch from that. Ordnance phase, and we started with the Cobras. They released their 4 torpedoes, which harmlessly passed through the strike cruiser there and ended up exploding in the asteroid fields.
We got lucky.
Yeah. For the battle barge, it decided not to shoot torpedoes because there's too many friendly parties involved, but did launch its assault craft, the Thunderhawk assault boats, and it managed to do an engine room damage and also dorsal, but there was no dorsal damage on this this particular ship.
Yep.
And then your guys came into my strike cruiser as well.
Yeah, we got very lucky, so nobody got shot down from the turrets. We managed to score 2 critical hits. So we were able to actually damage the port armament as well as the prow armament, so that's really going to take his firepower down quite a lot.
We'll see if we can save both my armaments and the critical fire.
There's a lot of damage rolls I think that we have to roll, especially on my side. I have a lot of guys that might blow up.
End phase at the very end of turn 3. So we started off with repairs.
And for my Grand Cruiser, it went well. We repaired the engine room damage, which is incredibly useful. But as you can see, those 2 flaming ships, the Heavy Cruiser as well as the Strike Cruiser, neither one of them were able to roll the needed 6 to put out their fires, and they went bye-bye.
Yes. In terms of repairs, I did manage to repair the the prow armament on the engine here on my strike cruiser, so he's maneuverable in the next turn.
Yep.
And I managed to repair the prow armament on my other bombard, so he's got his effective firepower back. But it really comes down to what happened with these hulks. So the catastrophic dice, I rolled a lovely 10 for this cruiser here.
Plasma drive overload, and it managed to hit all 4 of these guys here in the middle. Did really no damage to anybody except for this strike cruiser in the middle. Did take a couple hits as it got through the shields.
Yes, but there's a lot of blast markers there, which means that majority of the shields are already down in the beginning of turn 4. It's going to hurt. The last one just became a drifting hulk. But a good phase, but not a great end phase for the Dark Angels. We'll be back with turn 4 next.
Turn 4 for the Alpha Legion. I might actually be able to punch back on this one as well because that big plasma drive explosion has put down a lot of blast markers, seriously degrading the shields for the Dark Angels. Of course, as is the Alpha Legion way, we started with trying to issue special orders, and we failed, rolling a 10, thankfully, or not thankfully, but unfortunately. I wanted this guy to reload his assault craft, but unfortunately he couldn't reload the ordnance, and we failed. He was able, however, to turn. We're going to put all of our lances into that particular strike cruiser. Same thing with this cruiser. We've actually moved forward and put ourselves in a position to light up this one. Big Daddy, the Grand Cruiser, had just enough speed to actually make it straight and through all of those various blast markers and then turned 45 to bring his weapons to bear. This one is a drifting Hulk, of course, which is why it's still on the table. This particular strike cruiser moved up, turned, and moved again, making sure that we don't make contact with that blast marker. And then finally, this strike cruiser just barely passed his leadership check when he had to move through the asteroid field. He moved forward 10, turned 90, moved forward 10 again, and is going to hopefully light up these two final frigates over here. We'll see what happens in just a minute. Depending on if I roll hot, I might be able to down another ship or two, but let's see. So shooting phase for the Alpha Legion was a bit of a mixed bag. So we're starting over here on my right flank. Even with 4 lance shots, I only managed to sneak 1 through. Rich did brace here as well, so wasn't very successful. Much more successful here in the middle. So the combined firepower from the heavy cruiser and the Grand Cruiser managed to take out this strike cruiser. It rolled critical as well. It's now a blazing Hulk. So it's
didn't brace.
You didn't brace. You risked it for a biscuit. The rest of the firepower in here did absolutely nothing. So any other weaponry here, nothing. I would have at least liked to kill this frigate or something like this, but hey, I can't be too greedy. And then on this side, he was trying to pick on the Cobras with his bombardment cannon. He missed with that. But we do have some ordnance to shoot because he still has torpedoes. We'll see what happens in just a moment. So ordnance phase for the Alpha Legion, there was really only one, which was the strike cruiser over here firing off his torpedoes. He was successful in taking down one of the Cobras. It would have been nice to take down both, and then they continue along on their journey. We'll check for damage. There are still some damaged ships that we need to see about repairs in just a minute, and then I'll be wrapping up the Alpha Legion turn.
Movement phase for the Dark Angels, and we started off by moving the Hulks, the various ones. The Blazing Hulk moved forward and then exploded.
Yes, plasma drive overload, and unfortunately for me it was too low to hurt any of the Dark Angel ships, but that ship is officially gone. And then the Hulk over here
just kept drifting.
Just kept drifting, and we got another Hulk back over there.
That just kept drifting
Just
as well.
kept drifting.
So the rest of the movement, we just shuffled around. We're trying to go after the target over here. We did manage to repair in the previous end phase all of the armaments on this bombard here, so he's at full capacity, and he's also gone on lock-on orders. He's the only one who managed to. We failed our leadership check with our battleship to try and reload those assault boats, so there's no assault boats shooting for him. Movement-wise, we had some torpedoes that were going to impact into our capital ship, so we put some blockers in the way to try and help stop that, give it a bit of shooting in the ordnance phase, and yeah, we'll be on with the shooting next. Shooting phase for the Dark Angels, and abysmal is the only word that can say for this, because we shot everything at this one cruiser here, and we only managed to cause 1 shield down, given the fact that he was amazing on his brace saves.
I passed a grand total of 8 out of 8 4-ups, and they were all 5s and 6s, and that was the shooting from Strike Cruiser, from Big Daddy over here, the battle barge. Pretty clutch, because that was enough firepower to blow him up easily.
The only saving grace now is that I did shoot down these torpedoes, so they won't affect us in the ordnance phase, and I have no ordnance to shoot. So we'll be coming around probably with turn 5.
Excellent match, went back and forth. There was a lot of explosions and a lot of fun held by all, but I think I might have just squeaked out the win on that one.
Yeah, we called it at the end there, just before turn 5, because the way it was looking, the Alpha Legion were in the lead on points, and they were also pulling ahead of the Dark Angels, and there was very little chance of me catching you guys up before you disengaged from the field. And after calculating everything, it was pretty close, but I think you're still 100 or more points ahead.
Yeah, somewhere in that range. So we did a little bit of the theory hammer there at the end. I could have actually, full speed ahead on thrusters, or I could have disengaged, or I could have hidden behind the various asteroid fields, and that would have been a boring turn 5 to show you, which is the reason why that we elected to end it shortly. But yes, the points cost was actually, the points range was actually really, really close. But according to the rules of the fleet engagement mission, a win is a win, regardless of how many points.
It is. That's the one downside of the force I fielded. I had very short range weaponry, and as soon as you're using full thrusters ahead, rolling an extra 4d6 of distance, 30 centimeters is a very small distance to be shooting. I don't have any of those 60 cm lances that are fielded by the Alpha Legion there. So yeah, but definitely a fun game, and it was nice to get back into Battlefleet Gothic. We're a bit rusty, so I'm sure we made mistakes. We did know we made mistakes at the very beginning in the ordnance phases. But as we play this more and more and bring you more and more on the channel, especially in our linked campaign, we're going to get more acquainted with the rules, I think, and be slightly more true to the rule set.
Yeah, I mean, constructive criticism and feedback is always welcome, so don't be afraid to point those things out. The funny thing is, both Rich and I played Battlefleet Gothic. The problem was, in my case, it was 20 years ago. So that's just like learning the game all over again. So I know I made some mistakes, and I apologize for that, but we are doing our best to try and get it correct and even catch things during the filming.
Yeah. So do let us know if there was anything glaring that we did miss, because we do want to make sure we're doing this right coming into the future. And also, if you are a Battlefleet Gothic player, especially playing in the Horus Heresy edition rules that we are, let us know what kind of fleets you field and what maybe we can do to modify and optimize some of ours. Because we've gone very thematic for most of ours, but we have access to all of the Horus Heresy miniatures in 3D, so we can definitely bring you more specific types of gameplay. We're also looking to follow some more of the actual campaigns in both the Battlefleet Gothic normal book and also the Heresy edition book. And that requires a bit more tailoring of the lists that needs a bit of time for us to get the right models in place.
Yes, but no, we're very soon going to have probably, I think, fleets from like 8 or 9 different legions. So that's going to be really, really nice to see. Again, spoiler alert, the whole intent of our linked campaign is to do Isfahan. We're going to carry it from the Void War down to the teleporting onto the planets to the various activities on Isfahan 3 and 5.
Yeah.
So it's going to be pretty cool, so watch out for that. What about your man of the match? What do you think?
Has to be the Battle Barge. I've learnt from mistakes in previous games that he needs to be played a certain way and only a certain way, and let's drive him into the middle of the enemy fleet and unload, and then hope you can turn in time to get a second round of shooting off.
Yeah, I don't know if it was caught on video, but there was a couple times once he got close enough that I was like, firepower what? Like, how many bombardment cannons do you have? So yeah, I agree with you totally. Once he gets into range, he's nasty. He's just a wrecking ball. For me, I've got 2 ships in front of me, but honestly, the reason why I have 2 ships in front of me is because I could have picked either one. It's the Devastation or the Hades, and the reason why I would pick either one is those 60 centimeter range lances.
Yeah.
I mean, very quickly, I'm putting you either shields down, or I'm forcing you to issue an order, or, and I think kind of bunching up all of my long range stuff together and being able to concentrate on a single ship or a single squadron at one time. These things are worth their weight in gold, so got to go with those and the long-range weaponry.
Yeah, that's the beauty of the Lances. It really bypasses the Space Marine Strike Cruiser and Battle Barge's 6+ save by immediately going down to a 4+. So it makes you have to think. And if you kite correctly, you can really hurt a Space Marine force from distance without anything happening in response. I can't really fire back.
Yeah, exactly. So 1 or 2 turns of shooting that I can kind of just reach out and touch you, and not too bad. So definitely my man of the match. It was a very fun match. Always good to get in some Battlefleet Gothic again. You know, rekindle the old memories. Hopefully you enjoyed it if you've been staying here this long. Yeah. But like, subscribe, ring the bell, share, add your comments and feedback, do all of that.
Yeah, we'll be back with more Heresy Thursdays and more battle reports, both of Horus Heresy Standard, Battlefleet Gothic, And we're hoping soon, Legions Imperialis. We are still waiting for GW to restock a bit of their scenery.
Yes.
And as soon as we have that in our hands, we'll get that out on the table as fast as possible. I think it's one of our priorities to try and get some nice games of Legions Imperialis. We have our Legions more or less ready.
Yes.
We just don't have anywhere to play them.
And the Solar Ox.
Oh,
You did a bang-up job on the Solar Ox.
So you'll see both there.
Yeah, unfortunately in Malaysia, we don't have easy access sometimes to the restocks, and right now terrain is in short supply. So that's really what we're waiting on before we can bring you those. Any final comments?
No, thank you very much for the game. It was really exciting. We're going to try and get some maybe longer games as we get more and more efficient in this. I think we can also get larger games, and this is the kind of the beauty of both Legions Imperialis and Battlefleet Gothic. You can get into bigger fleet battles, or you can keep them in small frigate skirmishes. We could do that too. But thanks for tuning in. Thanks for staying this long. I really do hope you enjoyed the content. Don't forget to, like we said, like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification so you are notified of our future releases on Thursdays and on Mondays. But from me, Richard, thanks. See you next time.
Catch you on the next one.